As part of my extensive knowledge and insight with regard to the worlds of narcissism and psychopathy, I have put various people under what I call the Tudor scope, examining detailed material about their behaviours to make a determination as to what they are. Individuals such as Kevin Spacey, Amber Heard, Ben Affleck, Taylor Swift, Chris Watts have found themselves examined for the purposes of determining what they are. Alec Baldwin, Hilaria or Hillary Baldwin, Chrissy Teigen, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, Derek Jackson, Shane Dawson, Armie Hammer, Shia LaBeouf, Harvey Weinstein, Prince Andrew, Harry's wife. They have all been examined for the purposes of determining what they are. I've looked at Jada Pinkett Smith. I've looked at Will Smith. I've looked at Johnny Depp. And in many of those instances explained why those individuals and other people besides, Brian Laundrie for example, are narcissists. The examinations have been drawn from ordinary people, pop stars, politicians, famous and infamous people, actors, actresses, celebrities, and so forth. This enables you to understand the key indicators and how the determinations have been made. Within the royal family, of course, we focused heavily on Harry's wife because she is the gift that keeps on giving. However, I have explained, of course, that she's not the only narcissist that exists within the royal family. I've pointed out that this includes King Charles III, Camilla the Queen Consort, and Prince Andrew. Some people engaging in whataboutism have regularly said, why don't you do something on Prince Andrew? Well, I have. You can see in parts 1 to 5, plus Harry's wife part 67.12, and Harry's wife part 92.13, further information about Prince Andrew and his behaviours to help you understand a different type of narcissist to that of Harry's wife. And if you haven't accessed those materials already, I'd encourage you to do so. You can just search for them on my site. Accordingly, he has been put under the Tudor scope, and of course people wanted him examined in light primarily of the allegations relating to Virginia Giuffre. However, the series in relation to him is much smaller because there's far less material. Why is this? Why is there not daily updates with regard to Prince Andrew? Well, quite simply, it's because Prince Andrew doesn't feel compelled to bore us with an industrial beige podcast series and keep talking about it. Prince Andrew doesn't need to bring up matters from the past with relation to his apparent causing the change of mind of a multinational with regard to an advertisement and dining out on that for years later. Prince Andrew hasn't felt the need to turn up like some ghoul at a shooting memorial. He hasn't turned up at the United Nations, allegedly wired for sound. He hasn't turned up at the United Nations again, exercising a grip of doom over his intimate partner primary source. He hasn't turned up badly dressed in Harlem on some quasi-royal tour. He hasn't concocted a false royal tour, turning up in Manchester and sending the audience into a coma with one of the most boring speeches ever witnessed, nor then jetting off to Dusseldorf. He didn't seek to overshadow the Invictus Games by making them all about him in The Hague. He's not gone on an interview slating his family with, "What, lady?" He hasn't, on a daily basis, blitzkrieged people with PR puff pieces through People.com, Tatler, Harper's Bazaar, Town and Country, and, of course, Hello! He hasn't written a completely rubbish book and then hawked it around left, right and centre as if it's the secret of the universe itself. He hasn't puppeteered his intimate partner primary source in a prominent fashion. He has not given interviews as part of an ongoing smearing of his family. He didn't turn up at the Lion King premiere shilling for work, and then later claim that a cast member likened his marriage to that of the people of South Africa being overcome with jubilation as a consequence of the freedom of Nelson Mandela, likening his wedding and the reactions to that to the freeing of Nelson Mandela. He doesn't repeatedly reveal private matters whilst crying about his privacy. He doesn't turn up on a well-known chat show and make a fool of himself by squatting and pretending to be a baby. He didn't attempt to overshadow his own father's funeral, nor that of his mother. Accordingly, the reason Prince Andrew hasn't been scrutinised to the extent that that Harry's wife has, rather, is quite simply this. He's kept a low profile. He doesn't do all of those things that have been listed because his form of narcissism doesn't function that way. He doesn't operate with a facade, trying to make himself look like a kind and caring person. He's very much in it for himself, as I've explained in parts passing of the series about Prince Andrew. He doesn't go around holding himself out as being some saviour of the oppressed, defender of the downtrodden, and protector of the underdog. He's gruff and brash about the way that he goes about things. It's in it for him. Harry's wife, of course, it's all about her, and she's solely in it for herself, but she creates a facade to try and deflect from all of that by making out that she's a kind and caring, empathic person. Andrew doesn't go down that route. Therefore, he doesn't operate with the degree of prominence that Harry's wife does, nor does he have a huge victim mentality. He has one, all narcissists do, but it is not as substantial as that of Harry's wife, because she's of mid-range status and he is not. He doesn't feel the need to keep banging the drum about his supposed mistreatment at the hands of a family that he's involved with. Instead, he keeps a low profile. Indeed, in the last nearly 3 years, since matters became more difficult for him, his last engagement outside of the death of family members, in essence, was held on the 11th of November 2019 when he held a regimental council meeting. He had no public engagements whatsoever in 2020. Last year, he attended the funeral of his father, Prince Philip, on the 17th of April 2021. On the 29th of March 2022, he attended a service of thanksgiving for his father, Prince Philip. On the 10th of September 2022, he had attendance at the King's First Privy Council. On the 12th of September 2022, he attended at Holyrood House and was at a vigil at the Queen's coffin. On the 14th of September 2022, he followed the Queen's coffin from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Hall. On the 16th of September, he attended a vigil at Westminster for his mother, and then he attended his mother's funeral on the 19th of September. Bar the attendance at the Privy Council of his brother, in all other instances, he's been there as a consequence of the death of his father and then the death of his mother. That's it. No chat show appearances, no repeated puff pieces in PR attempts to influence people. He stayed quiet. In fact, the only real controversy that has arisen in relation to him in the last few years has been the man shouting at him when he was walking through the streets in Scotland, where he was called an awfully sick man, or words to that effect. And, of course, the allegations against him pertaining to Virginia Giuffre, which are, of course, a substantial matter and has been dealt with in parts passing. But beyond that, he doesn't pop up on a daily basis for 2 reasons. One, he doesn't feel the need, or his narcissism doesn't, to keep making him appear in the way that Harry's wife does. Furthermore, the media isn't as interested in him as it is in her. Sure, they've covered all of the allegations, and they did so comprehensively with regard to the allegations that Virginia Giuffre made because they were extremely serious. But beyond that, there isn't the same interest in him as there is in Harry's wife, because he largely stays out of the way. Why does he stay out of the way? Would it not be the case that a narcissist would, particularly of his sub-school, just think, well, fuck this shit, I'm going to do what I want? Essentially, it comes down to this. He doesn't operate a facade, so it's not necessary for him to keep making lots of public appearances. What matters more to him is, of course, the ability to control, but he doesn't need to control the masses. He controls those around him in smaller circles. His fuel matrix is smaller. Of course, that attends to his fuel needs that he receives by his repeated interactions with his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson. His children, the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie, his in-laws, Other members of the royal family, his nephews and nieces, and his brothers and sister. Of course, all of the people in terms of the staff, business connections, and so forth. And, of course, the various charities and good causes that he once was associated with, but, of course, that rode back following the allegations that were made against him. So whilst there is still a reasonably substantial fuel matrix, or was, it's not as large as the one that's been created by Harry's wife and other members of the royal family. Therefore, that's easier for him to control, but still deals with his fuel needs adequately, and more than adequately. With regard to Prince Andrew, money also is a substantial residual benefit, as it is for Harry's wife, but he doesn't do it in a prominent, look at me, I'm a celebrity entertainer way. He's always done it as a fixer, a dodgy business deal kind of individual, and that doesn't need prominence indeed. His narcissism prefers that it's not, so that it goes undetected. Moreover, as of late, as a consequence of the threats to control posed by the allegations made against him by Virginia Giuffre, it quite simply meant this. In order to keep the residual benefit of funding from the Queen and assistance with the payout that was made to Virginia Giuffre, his narcissism traded the prominence of control over more people with securing the residual benefit. An analogy is this. Where certain aging narcissists, the narcissism recognizes that they need to keep the intimate partner primary source in place because they are there looking after the narcissist as they become older and infirm, making meals, doing their laundry, shaving them, wiping their backside, giving them medication, whatever it might be. And whilst they will still lash out, they don't lash out to the extent that they once did. The nature of the control asserted over that intimate partner primary source is altered in order to shift more attention to the benefits that come by being associated with this intimate partner primary source. Prince Andrew's narcissism has behaved in a similar way. It has gone along exercising control by agreement of having no prominence in order for the trade-off of basically avoiding the potential of going to prison, avoiding the potential of an embarrassing trial and all of the disclosures that come with that, and, of course, the necessity of financial assistance, which has been provided to him not only in terms of the payout, but also of his day-to-day living expenditure and security costs, etc. And in essence, his narcissism has said, I will agree to behaving myself and keeping a lower profile on the basis that I'm getting all of these things. It benefits the narcissism, so it takes him down that route. And that's why Prince Andrew is far less prominent than Harry's wife. His narcissism has decreed that it doesn't need this prominence. Indeed, it is better served by not having it. It can still attain the prime aims, and in particular the important residual benefits. For her, her mid-range narcissism and her belief that the world loves her and she has to be seen means that she keeps popping up. And also, because of her behaviours and her sinking popularity, more and more people want to see what's going on and are interested in her compared to being interested in Prince Andrew. It's a useful comparison, but also a very good explanation to ensure that those who are hard of understanding realise the difference in coverage of the two individuals. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.